Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Are we live?
Yes. We're there.
Easy there.
We're all over. It's an earthquake.
Give folks a minute to arrive. In the meantime, so this gorilla, this pastor, and this Muslim walk into a bar.
Oh, good.
All right, never mind.
Stand still. I'm trying to put you in the frame. Okay, we're good.
All right.
Good to go. James Jeanette has joined. Harry Hellman says he's here from Michigan.
Michigan into his house.
Luke Rawls.
Luke.
He says, "What up, Big G?"
What up? We'll let a few folks wrangle in here first. I keep hearing myself. Is that because we're in an echoey room?
Echoing.
All right. How's the audio, everybody? Good? All four of you? Good?
Fife.
Fife in the house. That's the coolest last name in the world, by the way.
Sweet last name.
I mean, seriously.
Fyffe.
Yeah, dude, Fife is like one of the coolest last names in the world.
My son's cat's name is Fife.
Yep, exactly. My stepson Asa, his son's name is Fife. Wait,
Not his son.
his cat. It might as well be his son.
He doesn't have a son yet.
No real sons. All right, how many people are on? I can kind of start explaining.
Paul Kelly from Blighty.
Okay.
11 so far.
All right, well, I'm going to start explaining then. So, kind of what I'm going to do today, obviously, is a live feed for the Prevail 40. But I've had a lot of questions about a couple things in particular. And I did mention, because I get so many questions about it, is cam spacing and how does the cam spacing and using the shifting the cam from side to side, how does that all work? It's not rocket science, and once I explain it to you, you're probably going to do the same thing that I did. Just go find a dark room somewhere and be like, really? It's that easy? Well, yes, once you understand the theory of what it is, yes, it's going to be that easy. One of the other ones was my brother's PIC traveling buddy Jordan Behrens up in Bend, Oregon, wanted me to talk a little bit about my hunting arrows, these 586 grain meat missiles traveling downrange at about a 281 with about, the heck was that? 103? Is that right? 103 pounds of kinetic energy, which I think should be enough for squirrels and rabbits and such. If I ever go hunting anything big, I might have to step it up. But anyway, so of course, got my Merry Christmas, holiday, ho ho ho, and Dutch Brothers coffee in the house. If you haven't had Dutch Brothers, you're missing out. Anyway, all right, let's get going. Oh, that is just too good. So, first thing I'm going to talk about is my hunting arrow real quick to kind of get this bad boy out of the way. So, is Jordan on yet, do you know? Probably not.
I'm trying to get on mine right now.
He's probably out antelope hunting. But anyway, so I am shooting for this hunting season. I'm shooting the Easton Axis 260. So that's a 260 spine. So yeah, it's heavy. I am shooting this carbon to carbon, 31¼ inches. And so a lot of people ask me anyway why I don't cut my arrows to the rest, especially for hunting or whatever. Number one, I don't give a crap about speed. Have you seen these? I'm fine for speed. It's not going to be a problem. And so I wanted the heaviest projectile I can get, but I also wanted it to be the most stable. And so with an arrow this long, the main point for me is my fault, your fault, no one's fault. When I have a broadhead on the end of this arrow, and for those of you that don't know, a broadhead is an aluminum ferrule with razor blades on it. I don't want that coming back behind my shelf of my riser for any reason, ever, unless it's in my quiver. I'm just genetically predisposed. I refuse to have my broadhead come into the window and pass the back of the shelf. I know I shoot a full capture fall away rest. I don't care. It's just my thing. One of the other reasons that you guys are going to think is far more stupid and probably make all kinds of comments on there calling me all kinds of names, which is fine, is quite often I find myself hunting with television show personalities, and for hunting shows, you want the broadhead sticking out in front of the bow at full draw. Just for production stuff. I get it. If I owned a broadhead company, I would make my shows do that, because when they draw in the broadheads into the shelf, you don't see it from full. If you're a right-handed shooter, you don't see the broadhead in the shelf. So that's why I like to run mine a little longer. So there's multiple benefits for me, but this arrow is 31 1/4 inches long. I'm just running the standard Easton knock that comes in it. I am, however, running these. Can you see those all right? Here.
Yes, got it.
Okay, these are the brass hit inserts from Easton. And so I am running, and this part, bear with me, I am running the entire 75 grains down inside the front of my arrow, and I'm running 100 grain broadhead, or in this case, 100 grain field point. And the reason that I'm doing that is options. I just like to have more options, and historically, for me anyway, I've just found that there's more options in a 100 grain broadhead than there are the 125s. Sometimes you get to the 125s, they get just too big around, or I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I like to run a 100 grain broadhead because it just gives me a little bit more room to play. Different broadheads, different ferrules, 2-blade, 4-blade, 8-blade, whatever the hell I want to do. But obviously, the entire arrow, 586 grains, doing about 281. For vanes, I did a lot of testing for vanes on these arrows, and I am using the AAE Max Stealth. And I'm using the AAE Max Stealth. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I got a lot of helical on these. A lot.
Hold on. Hold it up just a little bit. Okay.
So I'm running a lot of helical on these. And I've shot expandables, I've shot fixed blades, I've shot pretty much everything out of here except for a Zwickey. For those of you who don't know what a Zwickey is, that's an old school finger broadhead. But anyway, I didn't make that word up, Kathy.
Something illegal.
Yeah, it's not illegal, it's just old. And so with this Max Stealth, it's by far the quietest vane on the market, period, hands down. I did testing downrange, and with fixed blade broadheads, I was shaving these off at 80 yards, and there's really nothing more I can ask for that. So as far as my arrow goes, that is it. That's what I do. I suppose I don't shoot lighted nocks because I don't care. If I go out and hunt with my boy John Dudley or one of those guys and they have lighted nocks, I'll just throw lighted nocks in here. But for me, whatever. I don't really care. There was one thing that I wanted to show you guys real quick that is not related to the Prevail 40. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I wanted to show you something about nock clocking. And I can illustrate that for you real quick. Kathy, if you want to pan over here. So I am going to show you guys what happens with a bare shaft when you shoot a bare shaft the way you tuned it, the way you tuned the bow for it. And by that I mean the nock location. Like on all of these nocks, there's a little groove, a little nipple, I could say. And so whether you tune it with the nipple in or the nipple out, I don't care. But what I'm going to show you right now is something that a lot of people don't realize. So I'm going to shoot this bare shaft the way that I have it tuned. Okay, and now I'm going to grab that same, you can just stay over there, babe. Now I'm going to grab the exact same arrow. All right. I am the boss of you, you know. And basically now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shoot the exact same the exact same bare shaft, but I'm going to put the nipple or the little nub of the nock 180 degrees from where I had it before. So you can hold on, babe. I'll pull it out for you. So what I wanted to show you guys is that just by flipping that nock the other way, you can see the difference in the tear. This one right here is the one I had it tuned for, and all I did was flip the arrow around and shoot it the other way, and you can see that it gave me a pretty substantial left tear. Now, what does that mean in real life? Well, it can mean a lot, but long story short is that's how important. So if you knock an arrow the wrong way, even if you have a fall away and you shoot and you're like, man, that arrow didn't seem like it flew right, or it might not even hit the right spot. Knock clocking. So it's very, very important, whichever way you tune your arrows with your nocks, you got to shoot them that way, or that's what happens. So just a little bonus tip for you today, kind of talking about the hunting rig. Obviously, if you're shooting like a lizard tongue and you shoot an arrow the wrong way, you will have made all kinds of contact and you'll be suffering all kinds of other good benefits from that. So that's just one little tip for you today. So I wanted to talk real quick about cam spacing and how to utilize, I'm going to be pointing this at you, babe, how to utilize the spacers in the cam to get rid of cam lean. So, by the way, this is what I call my Rock'em Sock'em robot bow. This is a Hoyt Vantage Elite Plus. This bow has been derailed, dry fired, dropped, stepped on, misstrung. This bow's pretty much had everything in the world ever done to it. This is my test bow. This is the bow that I do, you know, a lot of stuff out of the hooter shooter with, just testing. But this is the bow for those that come out and work with me on site. This is the bow you're going to take apart and put together 10 times in one day. And I don't mean take it apart, de-string it. I mean rocker pins, every single thing, as if you were going to the factory to build this bow. You'll break this bow down to that many parts and rebuild it until you absolutely know exactly what's going on with the bow. So this particular bow right now, I built up with cam lean. Can you guys see how far that arrow is off? That show it pretty good, babe? Yes. So you can see from the bottom cam, you can see how far over the arrow is about the cable rod. That's a good 3/4 of an inch to an inch off. That's obviously way too much cam lean for my taste. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of show you guys real quick what shifting a cam over actually does and the best way to do it. Number one, first and foremost, always, and I mean always, use calipers or a very fine ruler, whatever, it's got to be close, to make sure that the limb split out of your cams is the same as the limb split, or at least close to the limb split at your axle. Now, the caveat to that is obviously the Defiant series have some engineered variances there as far as they're tighter at the cam than they are out of the pocket, but that's by design. And I'm no engineer, I just play on the radio, so it seems to be working pretty damn good for me. But always check that on these bows. Always write them down, memorize them, it doesn't really matter, but you need to have that done so you don't end up messing up the spacer configuration. Now, For me, this bow's been pretty jacked around for a long, long time. But basically, if you want to come over here, babe, basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to press the bow. I'm going to stick a screwdriver in there and pull out the axle right here. And then I'm going to kind of pinch the cam to one side and I'm going to pull out the screwdriver. Now, even with my size hands, I don't always accomplish. Oh, dang it. Okay. Well, I almost had it. But basically what I'm doing here is, I got it. So this was the spacer on one side, and this bigger brown spacer was the spacer on the side that had the cam lean. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to swap them. Just going to be a simple swap. So I'll put my axle back in. I think there was two. Oh, yep, there it is. So I will take the spacers and basically I'm just going to go from one side to the other is all I'm going to do. So I got that in there. Get that back through there. And yes, sometimes my fingers do become an issue putting tiny little spacers together.
No, I'm not.
Shush. What?
So when Ryan Branco asked if I'm on a step stool.
No, it's called a tripod. So basically, I'm not going to worry about the E-clip right now. So basically, all I've done is take the larger spacer from one side, where the larger spacer was on the right and the cam lean was going to the right. So basically all I did is I took out that spacer, I took the smaller spacer from here and I swapped them. And I'm going to go into a little bit more about that here in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and unpress this bow. Always be careful. My thing is if I can't count to 7, I don't do anything with the bow. And by count to 7, I mean 1 loop, 2 loop, 3 loop, 4 loop, 5 loop, 6 loop, 7 loop. So if I can't count to 7, that means that I've not verified that every one of my string and cable loops is around the peg, and that becomes problematic. But even with this bow being in the condition that it is, I have no problem drawing it back. So now I'm going to show you what that cam lean looks like with the exact same arrow, just basically swapping those two cams. See that right there?
Yes.
So basically that cam lean was reduced by over half just by swapping the spacers over. And basically, a lot of you might be wondering, well, what exactly does that do when you move the spacer over? And basically, it's just a matter of leverage. Let's assume that this is your axle. You have an E-clip here, you have an E-clip here, and your limbs and all that good stuff. And let's say that you have equal spacing so that your cam's dead in the middle. Assuming that all of the forces are equal, which we can't do because the strings and cables are on this side, so it's inducing a little bit of torque, which is why we'll generally have a little bit of lean going towards the cable rod. But basically what we do by taking out space, if the cam's going this way, if we take out a spacer over here and we shift that cam over, basically all we've done is give this side more length, which equals more leverage. And that's why it straightens out the cam. I can't even remember the last time that I found a misdrilled limb. I literally can't even remember. So generally speaking, cams these days are manufactured to such high tolerances, doesn't matter what company it is, that misdrilled cams, I literally can't even remember. But if you visualize this as your axle, and this is your cam, if you have cam lean, too much cam lean like this, If you shift that cam over, it gives the opposite side more leverage. So therefore, if you have a cam like this and you shift it over, the more leverage pulls it straight. And that's basically how you space cams over. Now, what's an acceptable tolerance? That's up to you. For me, when I put an arrow on the cable track side of the bottom cam, I don't like the arrow to be any more than about 1/4 of an inch from the loop or the string going out. Obviously, that affects how the cam tracks. That affects a lot of things, but that is one of those, you're going to have to learn for yourself. No two are going to be the exact same. Obviously, on a lot of these bows now, we have torque relieving cable guards, which help that quite a bit. But so I'm going to explain something to you right now. I looked on the old Prevail down here, and the Prevail has more spacing. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the Prevail has more cam spacing than the old Vantage Elite Plus. Thank you, Hoyt, for that. So basically, one of those spacers in there is a 70 thousandths spacer. And so what I would do in the same circumstance is I would take a 70 thousandths spacer and I would split it. And so what I have here is I have a 30, I have a 20, and I have a 20. So basically what I've done is I will take this, and I haven't really checked the Prevail yet, we'll get there, but that's why I have these ready. So I would, if the cam lean is going the same way, I would take the 70 thousandths spacer out, and I'd probably take 30 thousandths out just to start. So what I would do is I would take this 30 and this 10, which equals 40, and I'd take this, this is 50, 30 and a 20, and then another 20. So I would take 20 out. So 30 and a 20 is 50. That leaves me with another 20. So basically what I would do is I would leave the 50 in where the 70 was, and I would use the other 20 to go to the other side, and that's going to help bring that cam back over. But just remember, if you take out 70, you have to replace it with 70. If you take out 70 and you add back in 100, you're going to have tuning problems, and you're going to wear out bearings, and you're going to do a lot of things that are going to be problematic to your bow and to your success. But that's basically the gist of the cams spacing there. Is there any questions coming in on this?
Ryan Branco wants to know, when you space one cam, do you have to space the other cam to keep it square?
Ryan asked if you have to when you space one cam, if you have to space the other to keep them square. And the answer to that is no, Ryan, because they're not. Square is probably not the right terminology. It would be running parallel with the riser, and they already don't do that. So if you look down the string itself, like on this podium right here, you can see that the top cam is already spaced over from the factory. I didn't do that. And then the bottom cam always comes off more to the outside than the top cam does anyway. So they don't run perfectly parallel with the riser anyhow. So that is not something you have to worry about. The reason that I focus so much on the bottom cam is because that's our driving cam. That's the cam that basically dictates everything, and I can only tune it once. I can only do this once. I can't stick an Allen wrench in that bottom cam on the range and put a little tweak and a little tweak. So that cam determines everything. So if you have horrible cam lean on the bottom, you're going to have similar horrible cam lean on the top. Not the same direction, of course, or else your string will just be making an arc. But the point is, no, Ryan, you don't have to do that. But the string doesn't run parallel anyhow. And once you get the bottom cam set, like we'll look at this Prevail right about meow. Once you get this bottom cam set, That's all you can do with it. And then everything else is going to be done with your cable guard, with your top cam, the whole 9 yards. So let's start taking a look here. So Prevail. Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, that's going to be just fine. That cam lean right there is nominal at best, doesn't bother me even the slightest. So I'm not going to have to do jack to this. I see that they basically have the 70 thousandths spacer on the inside for a right-handed shooter. And what I'm thinking is a 90 thousandths, maybe even 100 thousandths gray one on the outside. So I'm not going to have to do anything to this cam at all as far as that goes. Now let's look at the top. So the top cam is crossing over the string just a little bit. If you guys can see that right there. Got it, babe? I don't care about that. That's just a place to start. As long as this cam's not way out here or way over here, I don't care. I'm going to have to tune it anyway. So it doesn't really matter to me at all. I did have some questions regarding, oh, and I did throw on one of Blaze Ruffing's loops here. We're going to give that a go here in a minute. I do that all the time. I did get some questions regarding what I meant by tear a bow down to its bare bones before I get started. Obviously, we don't have time today, but what I would encourage you to do, I will actually post a time lapse of my little homie Sandlot, Jesse Clayton from Oregon, working on the mean green machine over there, putting it together from the very, very basic, tore down to everything up until a workable bow. Now, obviously, when I say this, please, if you don't have the technical knowledge, or if you don't have someone with you, don't take your bow down to the bare riser. Please don't. Just have someone with you, or if you do know how, that's awesome. I don't want to get a bunch of messages of people going, I tore my stuff down to nothing, now I can't put it back together. But basically the reason for me doing that started way back in the day with the Matthews Conquest 2. Literally a bow I got from Tim Gillingham in Bend, Oregon, and there was a piece of credit card in between the pocket and the limb. Like, this is 2002. This is a long time ago. And so immediately back then I'm like, what the hell? And so Tim started explaining to me. And so when I tear one of these bows apart, I will tear it down to everything. I will make sure that the rocker pins are properly fitted, because if the rocker pins are loose, your whole pocket can shift. And I just want to be familiar with every single moving part on the bow that I'm going to be using every single day. I want to know everything. I want to know how the pocket system works. I want to know, obviously, for cams and bearings and all that crap, that's the same. But I will pull every bow down. I will test every bearing. I will make sure that the E-clips aren't bent. And I will basically go through, I'll take out the cable rods, I'll take everything apart and make sure that when I put it back together, I know no matter whose fault it is, if anything happens, I rebuilt that bow. That's it. And so that's why a lot of people, Jesse Broadwater, Dave Cousins, a lot of these guys that are super savvy technical archers, if they have a breakdown, they can identify it that quick. Why? Because they pretty much rebuilt the thing themselves, so they know every single thing about that bow. So if there's enough cause for that, or if there's enough call for that, I'd be more than happy to do a live feed at another time with the big green machine to show you guys, or let me know in the comments. Apparently I had already ordered it, but I have a 40-inch Prevail with the X3 cams on the way. So if you guys think that would be something worthwhile, I will actually set up and I will tear down the X3 bow to the bare bones and rebuild it on a live feed if that's something that you guys want to see. So let's get started on on this Prevail here. I already threw on a blaze loop, because if you don't know how to put a loop around a string and put it back through itself, you have a lot bigger problems than what I'm going to be able to help you with today. Threw on the gripper back mount. I'm going to start low, just kind of see how it does. I threw on the mount for the sight, and threw in the peep. I haven't really tied anything in yet, but one thing that I wanted to get started on was what we talked about last week with knock fit. And this is a lot more critical on a target bow than it is a hunting bow. So I'm going to show you guys something. This is the jig you saw me with last week. And this is going to be my indoor bow right now. So 3D, Easton 3D Super Knock. Blam. So I'm going to put this bad boy on. I'm going to change this to ounces. Okay. So basically what I'm doing right now is I am checking to see how many ounces of pressure. Yikes, we're at like 55. All right, let me come around this side, babe, so I can show everybody what I'm doing here. So basically I have this jig. I put it on about where my loop's going to be. And then basically I just start to pull. 44. 52. This is a lot more than what I like.
Can you move your hand while you're in it?
Okay, I'll just let the jig fall then. Ready?
Yes.
About 50. Whoops, sorry folks. So that's too much for me, not what I like. But factory strings, I'm not worried about it. But I'm going to show you why that's happening right meow. So this center serving right here from the factory is chilling about 112 to 113 thousandths. Yeah, 131. So that's pretty stout for what I'm looking for. So I do have, and I'm going to do another video on these, but look what came in the mail. Woo! Scott Parrish's Christmas, it's Prezzies, is my exit wire magnums from First String. This magnum material is the sickest material that I've ever tested, ever. I love it. It is a BCY product, Bob and Chris Destin, my man. So I'm not going to swap these out right now, but I am going to show you something real quick. And that is how I spec out my own center servings. So as we saw on these things are 113 thou or so. They're pretty damn stout. Actually, it's...
Chuck Cooley wants to know, do you have a goal for size on final serving?
Yes, I do. It's what I'm getting to right now, Coolio. And so, yeah, I'm getting... Let me get back up where the loop is. Yeah, I'm getting about 115, 116 thousandths where my loop's going to be. So here I pull out my first string strings and I spec these out and I tell Scott Parrish 108 to 110 thousandths. Period. End of story. And if I order more strands on my if I order more strands on my string, Scott has to figure it out. If I order a stock one, Scott has to figure it out. All I know is I want my center serving 110 to 108 to 110 thou. So here are my first strings right here. Here's my center serving. Got right there on the dial, babe.
Yep.
Look at that.
Jeremy, you were close.
Right on the money. 109. If I move up a little bit. 109, go down a little bit, 108. So that 5 to 6 thousandths is huge when it comes to the amount of pressure it takes for the knock to come off the string. And so I specify everything at 108 to 110 thou. have done it for years. I actually was turned on to that particular knock kind of fit from a buddy that shoots professionally as well. He shoots okay. He doesn't like to get called out on stuff very often, but his name rhymes with messy swamp water. So easy there, babe. So Jesse kind of started, showing me what kind of knock fit he liked on some stuff. And so over a lot of, when Jesse was actually making my strings is when the 108 to 110 thou kind of came into play. And so basically what I'm going to do right now, since I don't have to do anything with cam lean, and I never really press this bow, I'm going to slap a rest on here real quick. Of course, we probably don't need to ask which rest I'm going to be going with. Of course, it'll be the AAE Freak Show. So I would have had a nice fancy Last Chance Archery bow holding jig mechanism type dealio. However, apparently the holidays absolutely kicked our buddy over at Last Chance Archery, Jonathan. Apparently the holidays have kicked his butt because he's apparently got lost in translation. So I don't have that handy dandy deal, but I'm just going to throw this rest on here and kind of tighten this deal up a little bit. So rest is on there. Rest is one thing, folks. One thing that I always do is I will always take a Sharpie. I don't know how well you can see that, but I will outline. Can you see on top and bottom of the rest?
I'll lean it back a little bit. There we go.
I will take a Sharpie and I will just outline the mount. Just because my fault, your fault, no one's fault. If it gets bumped, it gets bumped. It is what it is. So one difference right here, Dutch Brothers brake.
But that's none of your business.
But that's none of my business. One of the things on the Prevail that I will do that is different than the double XL is on the double XL, I started my center shot at 3/4 of an inch on the hunting bows. On the tournament risers, however, I will set my center shot out of the gate at 13/16. So 13/16 is just the number that most of your Hoyt folks have. You know, that's not a number from the factory. If you call and ask Evan, he's going to tell you to, well, he might just tell you 13/16. If so, you owe him a soda pop. But 13/16 is just kind of the center shot that most of these Hoyt target bows have shot the best at for years. What's that, babe?
James, Jeanette wants to know what angle do you run your blade at typically?
James, that's coming right meow. One of the things, you know, that's a major difference and has to do with the window and the grips and everything is on a hunting bow, Hoyt, I'll start my center shot at 3/4. On the target bows, 13/16. Now, I don't move my rest to paper tune. I don't move my rest to bare shaft tune. I hardly ever paper tune. What you just saw is more than I've done in several years. But I don't move my rest to tune. To group tune I do, but I don't move my rest to paper tune or bare shaft tune. I do all of that with the top cam, all of it. And so the first thing that I generally do on these is I will move my cable rod adjustment into the second notch. Now, the reason that I can't run it all the way in like messy swamp water, he runs his all the way in and has no problems with it. But for me, it gets into my scope. And so generally speaking, I'll start it on the second mark when I put in my True Ball Achieve sight, I will shameless plug. I will adjust this so when I draw back, my cables are just on the right side of my housing. They kind of take off the right side of the white ring, but they're not like in the middle. And I don't know if it's just me because of my draw length or what, but that's kind of how I like to set that. As far as the angle of the launcher blade goes, I'm going to start off right now. La 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 la. Okay, that's probably about a 10 thousandths blade, standard. So I haven't tuned this, so I might need a 12 thousandths, but I'm just gonna start off with a 10 because, to be honest, it was already on there. I don't run the wide, I just run the standard. And for me, I generally run my launcher blades anywhere from about 35 to 40 degrees. I don't like them to be too steep, and I don't like them to be too shallow. So 35 to 40 degrees is generally where I start running these. If you're wondering about this felt in here,
short or long blade?
this is the standard long blade. I put this felt in here kind of for a weird reason, but I put the felt in here because when I load my arrow, I ride it down the inside of my shelf. Yeah, no, I would kill myself if I had to listen to that all day. And so, no, I don't care about resale value. I don't care about any of that. I just care about my sanity. And so if I was like, eek, eek, every time, somebody would die. And so, that's basically where I set all my launcher blade angles, about 35 to 40 degrees. In my experience, that allows the launcher blade to actually perform the way it's supposed to perform. If you have a 10 thousandths too steep, you're basically going to end up with a 12 that's overworking itself. If you go too shallow, then obviously it's going to perform weaker. So that is just one of those things to keep in mind there. So I'm going to go ahead and tie on a knocking point. Now, as mentioned, yes?
Do you kind of guesstimate the degree angle, or do you have something to measure it with from James Jeanette?
What's up, James? No, I don't have anything coolly technically to measure it. However, I've just been doing so many of them over the years that I can kind of eyeball it, and it's usually pretty damn close. Something to measure it with would be pretty handy. There is a couple variables that I could see there too, but that seems like that's a logical connection there. So as stated, I am going to be trying out the old Blaze Roughing torqueless loop. I've actually tried this a couple times in the past, and I don't know, I've never had a problem with it. This is actually one I've tried for a few times, so it actually is a bit used. So for those of you that weren't around for the double XL bow build, I am going to make one of my it's not mine actually. I got it from Jake Kaminsky, Olympic recurve, silver medalist. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build this on here real quick. I'm just going to go through twice. I'm just going to let that sit here, and I'm going to grab the old Boski square ski. And once again, I am used to being a little bit below center. So this knock point on this configuration is actually going to be above my arrow. So basically all I do is just loop this through here twice. And like my man John Dudley said on his bow builds, you always want this to be nice and loose so that when you close this loop, it doesn't just knot up on you. So I'm just going to go through here, do this about 3 or 4 times. Any questions, babe?
No.
So
someone wanted to know about your stand.
Oh, the stand. Well, this is the last chance. Love these presses, by the way. This is the last chance easy green. For anyone who's been to Reading or any other West Coast shoots where I go, if I drive, this press comes with me. I have the adapter for the trailer hitch of my truck. I also have the adapter for the back of our Volkswagen Golf. They sent the normal stand for me to use. I actually use it at home, but for this stuff, I actually end up using this press down here at AAE's testing facility more than I do my one at home. But basically, it was short for me. And so my boys here, Nick Fisher and TJ Fisher, had one of their guys whip me up a new stand that is, let's just say it's not regular. It's not regular height. So it's comfortable for me to work on. When guys like Chuck Cooley or Jeremy Beards, come by the house and try to do anything with it, of course, it tends to get a little bit tall for them. But basically, all I'm doing is just going through twice with these knots. This is going to be my last one on the bottom, and then I'm going to finish this off on top.
What was the tide knock material again?
Oh, this material that I like to use is actually BCY nylon. I'll show you here in just a second.
How many times do you do that?
I did it 5 times. So this is just nylon serving from BCY.
There's their phone number.
Yep, call them up. Works super good. I really like it. It's easy to work with. I've never... What's that? Sandlot, my dog. So basically, I'll come back to the top, and when I go to... I'm not going to back wrap this. So basically, when I come back to tie this off, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go underneath the bottom set of knots. And that's for a consistent fit of the knock, so that there's nothing getting in its way. So where's my fire? Here it is. So basically, like John said, fire goes up. And we've all messed that up plenty of times. But we let that come down. So basically what I have now is what just looks like a standard knock set. However, let me grab the greatest tool ever invented in archery, the fork. I use it for multiple things, by the way, but I will take this fork and I will basically compress that knock set. And that's it right there. Now, one of the cool things about this is you see where it is now? I can rotate this around the string and it stays the exact same. So if I go to the left, it walks down the serving. If I go to the right, it walks up. So what good does that do me, you might ask? A lot, especially for tuning. Like right now, I just moved it down too far. You can see that right now, that is virtually dead level. The problem is this is going to be an indoor rig with Blaze Ruffing's torqueless loop. So I'm going to screw that back up a little bit. That's going to be pretty close. So what I like about this knock system is it allows me to tune. It allows me to tune. It allows me to do all kinds of stuff and not have to take off my D loop and take off everything to get it done. So now, mind you, I am new to this, actually using this in a proper rig. I've messed with this loop, but I have still not managed to master it. But
what are you lining the air
Well, when I check my knock height, I just move it back and forth until it ticks the top of my launcher blade. It's just a reference for me. Is that an actual perfect representation of what the knock height is? No, because the arrow weight, like this guy's a 250 grain point in the front, is actually going to bend down that launcher blade a little bit. But it's just all relative anyway. So no, it doesn't. It doesn't perfectly represent what the exact knock height is. Now, I'm not sure how George Riles is doing his, but I'm just going to take these bad boy little pliers right now. I'm just going to kind of tighten that up a little bit. So I just take, when I put this on, I'll put this your direction. Here. You can see the top, but listen. Can you hear that tick?
Yes.
That's just the square going across the top of the top of the blade. So what I'm going to do is probably, this stuff's nice and small. I'm going to use some 14 thousandths halo to tie on this blaze loop just for fun. So bear with me, folks. Let me kind of wrangle this bad boy here. This is most certainly not going to be as pretty as George Riles is, because George is the man and I'm not. But I'm just going to tie a couple doubles on here just to give it a kind of a nice little foundation right there. And then I'm just going to bring this around. I bring this around pretty tight. Not that tight, pool. And then under. How many people out there are running one of these loops? Anybody? George, if he's listening, of course, but nobody?
Give him a minute.
Oh, that's right. There's a delay. Totally forgot. Is that in case I like kill myself on film or what?
Or say bad words.
I say bad words all the time and it doesn't do anything. No? Fine. So I'm going to go down and around on this one more time. Like I said, George Riles is probably going to kill me for this, but
Tying it on?
no, just for how I'm tying it on, because he's the master at it and I'm not. But it's whatever makes me feel good, right? So I don't think I'm going to have to worry about this thing moving now, to be completely honest, which is probably a good thing. Just about done here, folks. Any questions out there on any of the stuff that I was talking about earlier?
There's a question from Bob Looney. What's the difference between that and a release rope?
What's up, Bob? Basically, all this is, and I don't know what kind of string material, but basically it's just string material made into a loop and then served right here. That's it. It's not going to stretch. I guarantee you that. This is going to be way stronger than regular loop material, given the number of strands and the fact that it's doubled up and whatnot. So I'm definitely not worried about it stretching. My only real concern at this point is I don't know. I've never, like I said, I've messed with these. I've just never really given them a fair shot. So I figured, you know what? This time we're going to. So just to recap real quick, folks, for those that didn't tune in for my double XL, always start yourself off with a journal baseline. So like when I get home, I'm not gonna do it right now because y'all don't want to watch me write down words.
How do you keep it from twisting around the string? Ricky Gay would like to know.
That's why I just tied it in, look.
Okay.
See it, Ricky?
Hold on, let me get a close up.
So it's not the prettiest job in the world, but it'll work. So basically, Ricky, if you look, whoop, whoop, does pretty damn good. So that's going to be that. Let me grab my...
Andrew Schmock wants to know, so when you set your square, why do you do it when just clicks against the sight?
The sight?
That's what he says.
Or the launcher blade?
The launcher blade.
Who was that again?
Andrew Schmock.
Andrew. The reason that I do that is because I can repeat that every single time. I can repeat it no matter what. No matter what happens, no matter where I am, I can repeat that. And so if I try to go, I didn't bring an X10. If I go from a 600 grain indoor arrow to a 400 grain X10, how much deflection on that blade am I going to get? I don't know. And I don't really care. So the reason that I just let it tick on the top of the launcher blade is that is incredibly repeatable. I can repeat the same thing no matter what. While we're here, journaling. You got another question, babe?
Bob Looney wants to know why you would use that loop versus old school release with a braided loop.
Why this instead of the old-fashioned kind? Because it's November and it's time to play. I've had it. Roger Willits kicked my ass with it for years. George Riles has done amazing with them. And so I figured at this point in my career, I'm not really going places to win anymore. I'm going to work and hang out with friends and stuff. So I don't see that this loop is going to do me any harm whatsoever, Bob. So I'm just going to give it a try. I'm just going to use some 14 thousandths real quick here and just tie in my peep. Because this is a target bow, I generally speaking don't do a hardcore tie-in like I did on the hunting bow here. Usually because I still have to go outside and set my peep height for 0. And by that what I mean, I'll explain that here in a minute. Once again, this is another one of those pro tips that another pro that's way better than me, prettier than me, smaller than me, gave me years ago. Once again, her name rhymes with messy swamp water. Was that I used to always set my peep. So when I came to full draw with my eyes closed and anchored in and opened my eyes, I was right at about 45 yards. Because I thought, well, that's the middle of the sight tape, basically. No, actually it's not. It's the middle of the sight tape as far as yardage goes for the most part, save the 2 shots per tournament at 100 for those that go to those tournaments. But Jesse explained to me that that's not actually the middle of the tape for distance. So if your sight tape is, for instance, this long, 45 yards is not mathematically in the middle. The marks are much closer together at the top from 0 to 50 than they are from 50 to 100. So Jesse actually told me to try zeroing my peep, depending on the format, of course. If it's indoors, you just want it to be 20. But outdoors for like field and redding and stuff, Jesse said he centers his peep at about 65 yards, sometimes 70, which means once your bow is tuned and everything, you go outside to 65, 70 yards and you draw with your eyes closed, anchor in, open your eyes, and you want that to be your 0. And you have to move your peep and your sight together until when you draw back and anchor, get set, open your eyes, you're looking right through your peep, right through your scope, and you're at about your 65 to 70 yard mark. That is zeroing your peep at range. Now, obviously for indoors, we do that at 20, but that's what that's all about. And I can tell you right now, it's a hell of a lot better and a hell of a lot more accurate when you get to like, 10 to 20 yards to go like this and kind of scrunch a little bit and execute than it is to get out at 75, 80 yards and be having to like crawl up into your peep. So it helped me tremendously. Literally, when I first did that, I saw a noticeable difference in accuracy at long distance virtually immediately. It was more comfortable, it was more repeatable, and so that was the major reason for that. Back to journaling. I can't explain to you folks how important it is to journal. The last couple of years, I sucked. There's no other way to put it. As far as shooting goes, my shooting was the worst the last couple of years it's been in a long time. And so basically what I did is I have a journal, and I looked back through that journal all the way back to when I shot PSEs, I shot Matthews, when I shot a ultra elite Hoyt way back when with some of the first spirals because Darren Cooper said so. And so I started to notice some things. And one of the things that I noticed was I was way above the mass weight that I shot my best scores with. Let me dispel a rumor right now. Mass weight has nothing to do with how strong you are. Trust me. If mass weight had anything to do with how strong you were, I'd be doing a lot better. But so I found for me that about 8.25 pounds, 8.25 pounds was kind of my magic number. If I literally got up to 8.5, it wore me out. And so I kind of went back to that right before Outdoor Nationals last year, and it worked incredible. So start a journal. And when you start journaling, write down every aspect of the bow build. Once again, I cannot stress this enough, cam spacing out of the pocket versus cam spacing at the cam. You have to know what those numbers are, because if you start shimming cams or you start doing anything like that, you have to replace it with the same amount of spacing that you took out. And that's the best way. Like I said on the XXL bow build, I have literally been mailed bows to work on, and I pulled one out of the box here 6 months ago, and it had an extra, I'm not gonna say the bow brand, it had an extra 30,000 spacer on top. And the guy and his friends couldn't figure out why it was having tuning issues. And so as soon as I saw it, I went to journal the bow. Really, babe, really? Kathy's busting open Fritos. It's gonna be loud as hell in here. There's not a shotgun going off. It's Kathy pounding Fritos. So,
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Once I pulled out to journal the bow, so I knew what was going on, I literally got to that right away. So cam spacing, incredibly important. Making sure that rocker pins and everything on the bow is spec'd out as far as what's going on with that. So no matter what happens, you can come back and look at it. One of the other things that I do is at tournaments, we all make changes, whether it's a twist in this, a twist out of that, add an ounce here, take an ounce off there, because there's really no way to replicate that tournament performance. And so when we take notes at a tournament, come home and add them to your journal for that particular bow. For instance, if you look at mine, it'll say, whatever year it is, pre-Reading. And when I get back from Reading, which I've never went to Reading and not changed something, because I'll come home and do the exact same stuff, and then I'll write down after Reading, and then I'll see what the difference is. By doing that, you can really find out what you're going to be looking at. So let's talk about grips real quick. I really like this grip system from Hoyt, by the way. I don't think I pulled off the string on this, did I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Always count to 7. If you can't count to 7, don't do anything with your bow, because that means your loops aren't all on. last year on the podium, I ended up going to the number 6. I've never had that much grip angle before, but it just seems like that was working for me fairly well. One thing I want to talk about real quick is this new geometry. This particular, that work for you? This particular riser, this Prevail, they lowered the grip back down. They shifted it down. I've heard people say 1.5 inches. I've heard, whatever. Brian Gold, if you're on there, you can tell us. Or Evan or Mike Looper or Randy Walk if you're creeping. Whatever. So I don't know how far they lowered the grip. I don't care how far they lowered the grip. I just know in some of the initial stuff I was doing with this bow at home, not set up of course, but some of the aiming characteristics of this, I didn't even have it timed, were absolutely incredible. So with that being said, and under normal circumstances, I wouldn't talk about the drop of the grip as a factor that you need to keep in mind. However, if you were working with the podiums the last couple years, you will have noticed that a lot of people from the very get-go had problems with the podium, with some tuning and with some holding stuff. And you know, some pros even went back to a different bow because they couldn't figure it out. But you know, once again, Messy Swampwater, who's a lot smarter than he gives himself credit for, started raising the rest. And so on those podiums, a lot of us had a really good success with actually having the arrow and the launcher blade above the burger button hole. Like literally 1/8, 3/16 above the burger button hole. And so that worked out for a lot of us. Well, with this lowering of the handle, I don't think we're gonna have to do that. I really don't. I've not tuned this bow yet. I will know. We'll probably know here in about 15 minutes. But I'm gonna run this just right through the burger button hole right now. On the Mean Green machine and on the Vantage Elites, I ran that sumbitch as low as I could get it in the shelf without hitting the shelf with my veins or my fingers. But this geometry is different, and so I'm just gonna start off with this right through the burger button hole. If I have any holding characteristics that are different, I will know. If I end up having to go from the 6 back down to the 4, I think that's going to be a direct result of that lower grip. So I don't know why exactly. You know, Hoyt's got some smart engineers over there, guys that can shoot. So I don't know if, I'm assuming that they put that grip back down there for straight tunability and holding pattern, which wouldn't bother me a bit. So right now, as part of my journaling, of course, I realized that the best scores I ever shot and the most fun I ever had shooting a bow was with the stabilizer set up a certain way. And as much as, you know, Blair Sandberg and I went out there and we pretty much, you know, changed that particular game, but I think I got caught up and got away from myself a little bit. So right before Outdoor Nationals, I actually went back to a long front bar, 33 or 36, 12-inch bar on the back, and literally went back to the type of stabilization setup that allowed me to shoot the best. And for me, that is an 8.25 pound bow with a slight front end resistance load, meaning right now I'm shooting a 36-inch front bar with 3 ounces, and I'm shooting a 12 with about 15. And so overall, we're gonna weigh my bow here in a minute. Let me grab my sight. I'm shooting the Carbon Bar Achieve with the Shrewd Essentials scope housing, Feather Vision 4-power lens. So obviously gonna slide this in here to my mark. So like I said, I automatically move this rod into about the second hole, and I do that for a reason. And that's because at my draw length, I don't want the cables to be in my sight. Well, if that stays right there, I might be able to come in one more slot, but I'm not going to push my luck there right now. That looks pretty damn good to me. What's up?
Nothing.
All right, let's obviously one thing we need to do, which I haven't done, is we need to check the timing on this bow and see where we're at there. Obviously, on the SVX cam, being a spiral type cam, or a spiral cam indeed, is whether or not we will be running it ahead on the top. And that is, you know, we're just going to have to see. I am suspecting that I probably will a little bit, but I'm not going to know that until I actually get out and about. And so right now, I am actually running the peg on the bottom and the inside hole. And so I'm going to do a couple things for you. What? Wow. Okay, so this thing, don't ever stick your hands or head. We all saw that video on Facebook of that dumbass holding that diamond, sticking his head in there. Don't. Stay out of here with your business. Don't stick your hands in. Just don't. If I hear of you doing it, I will find you and I will make fun of you. I have to. But the timing on this is damn near dead even. The top might be just a skoshi bit. Yeah, I cannot complain about that. So timing on this bow is going to be pretty stout. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to check draw length, and some people check it from all kinds of different ways, but okay, so I ordered this bow 31.5 inches. I haven't put any twist in anything. I haven't even, if that peeps in the right height, I'm gonna die. But right now, babe, if you want to come back over here, let's see, 1 3/4.
Like all the way over here?
No, just right over the top.
They want us to show them the timing.
Okay. So if you look, I am at 31 15/16.
It's upside down.
Yeah, 31 15/16. That's pretty dope. So that's going to be fine for me right now. Normally speaking, I'd probably be a 1/16 or so longer than that. However, all of my people make fun of me for how short my D-loop has been historically, and this Blaze one's a little bit longer than what I normally run, so I think I'm going to let her buck right here. All right. All right, go ahead and watch the top.
Like this?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll go back, and then as we, okay, go ahead and look at the bottom now.
That's going to be tricky.
There you go. So that's pretty good right there. I won't know if this timing is where I'm going to leave it. I won't know that until I start shooting. And the reason for that is one of the things I like about the spiral cam, or excuse me, one of the things I love about the spiral cam design is that I actually have always been able to manipulate that for hold. It's never really affected my timing because I'm not jacking anything up. But this is one of those things where I am able to, that wasn't all the way on, there it is, where I wasn't, totally forgot what I was saying right there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying anyway. The timing on the cam. So I won't know exactly where I want the timing on this until until I'm actually shooting it, because I'll add or take out a half a turn out of the control and bus, and just for feel, just to see what's going to hold best. So for right now, this is going to be a good place to start. So I think what we need to do right now is we need to, what?
Jeremy says old people problems.
Just tell me about it.
Kyle Condra says, how do you measure that? From what point you add 1 3/4?
From
less 1 3/4?
Standard industry measurement for draw length is 1 3/4 from the burger button hole to the string. That's what most people in the industry use. Generally speaking, at home, I just go off I have the exact same last chance draw board at home. And so I just go from the back of this peg, which is not exactly perfect, but I went 1 3/4 from the burger button hole to the string so that all of you folks could.
Jordan Beeman says, sorry, back to the torqueless loop, but does that add any extra downward pressure on the rest blade from the arrow?
I would almost guarantee it. I've not tested that yet, but if I had to guess, Jordan, I would think that there would be no way that it wouldn't. But I'm not going to say that's going to preclude anything. And I'm going to actually use what I saw my boy John Dudley do the other day on one of his builds, where he actually just put a piece of paper on the on his light deals for his chrono. I was like, oh, God, damn, that's a good idea. So let's put that there, and let's shoot an arrow out of this thing. What do you think? One thing to keep in mind, folks, is to always make sure, like I'm running a 10-degree quick disconnect, the AAE by Gripper, or the Gripper by AAE one. So I always make sure that my stabilizer is straight. Sometimes it can be all kinds of reasons, but generally speaking, especially on a quick disconnect that's 10 degrees down, you can actually have it going way off to one side versus the other. Okay. So the old torqueless D-loop doesn't load the exact same as all the others. All right, let me see here. That's giving me a little bit of a left tear. Let me do that one more time.
Chuck wants to know if your tuner needs to be higher to get a true read.
True read for what?
Chuck?
Yep, little left. So, knock height's solid. Basically, all I'm going to do at this point is probably put some twists in my left yoke and call it good. That is smoke as far as I'm concerned. I wanted to show you guys one thing real quick. Has Chuck got back to you on what?
Yes, he says if it's downhill, will it read a different tear?
No. Nope.
Andrew Schmock says, does it matter the size of serving used on the torqueless D-loop?
I don't know. I've not actually tried this torqueless D-loop to this extent before, but I'm going to do something right now for you guys just to show you something. So I'm going to shoot through this chrono with my indoor arrow, not because I care how fast it is, but I've gotten some questions on running the peg in the inside hole versus the outside hole. So I'm going to shoot this. .240. So my big old ginormous indoor arrow is 240 feet per second right now. And so what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm actually going to move the peg to the outside hole so that all of you can see, and I can see, I haven't done this, but basically I'm going to put this in the outside hole and see what it does for speed and see what it does for any questions while I get this done?
Yes. Are you going to be posting this video on YouTube?
I've gotten enough requests for it. I suppose I'm going to have to, yes. Can't read those. C. No wonder. I thought they were numbers and they're letters. Shows how stupid I am. So basically what I wanted to show you folks here, or at least we can find out together, is how much difference there is, if there's any difference in speed, going from the inside SVX hole to the outside SVX hole. So let's, what?
Jack says reading glasses.
Shush, Cooley.
Me too.
What?
I know a guy.
Yeah. That's a hell of a lot harder wall, I can tell you that. I said hell. 1.5 feet. I'm not sure if 1.5 feet per second is enough for me to really care about. I know that the wall is significantly more stout. I'm kind of liking the feel of the wall on the inner peg. Let me shoot this through here one more time. That's 0.5. So basically, from what I can see right now, there is no speed difference whatsoever. If there is, it's nominal at best. I mean, the last one was 240 with the peg on the inside. It was 240 with the peg on the inside, and it's 239.5 with the peg on the outside. But the outside does have a significantly harder wall. So if you're into the harder wall part, that is definitely going to be for you. Me, however, I'm gonna put it back on the inside. Like I said earlier, I will be getting a 40-inch Prevail with the X3 cam, and when that happens, I'm really looking forward to testing that bow out. I've been a spiral guy pretty much ever. I mean, I tried the GTX cam when it first came out, but that cam wasn't really for me. But so I've always been a spiral guy. But everybody I've ever talked to says that the C2 cam from Hoyt was one of the best cams ever, and that's basically what the X3 is. Oh, let's check my bow weight as far as. Like I said, I'm looking for everything still on here, so it should be. Oh, come on.
For indoor
I come look.
Yes.
8.33 pounds. It actually had leveled off at 8.27, but when I moved, it actually went up a couple. But so that mass weight right there is going to be the balls for me. Indoor arrows, carbon versus aluminum. Well, good question. Who asked that?
Paul Wishman.
Paul Wishman. Good question, Paul. I was a huge believer in the big carbon arrows, mainly because they last forever. I still have some gold tip triple X's from 10 years ago I could go grab and shoot 300s with. I've tried lots of different arrows. What I've noticed the most about the aluminums is the level of forgiveness. Steve Anderson from Easton sent me some of their new full bores last year. I tested them and they shot amazing. I shot the cleanest half. I shot a clean Vegas half with, I'm not even kidding you, out of 15 shots, I'll bet I shot 9 inside outs. It literally was one hole. But that particular day, I felt like I could have literally done anything and hit the middle. But as things, progress, you have your good days, your bad days, et cetera, et cetera. I've just found that the aluminums are a little easier to tune and that the aluminums are more forgiving. And that's really what it's all about, is that forgiveness. And so can you tune the big stiff carbons? Absolutely, no doubt about it. There's lots of people out there that kick my ass with big fat aluminums every tournament. Not a problem. Is it dead? Hello? I'm still good. You still good? Sound check, everybody? Yeah. So I think we got some electronic interference going on over here. Kathy's trying to get it figured out. How are we doing? Sound check good? Was your phone not charged when you got here, I assume? How's the sound, everybody?
Do you have to worry about spying with aluminum arrows like you do carbon?
Are we good on sound then? All right. Hold on.
Stand by.
Check, check. That's still good. Yep.
Is that better?
Static. Hold on, bear with us, folks. How bad is it?
Some people say they can hear. Oh, I think it's this.
Okay, fixed. Thank you. Okay, so to finish what I was saying about the big arrows, look, 2712s it's a great arrow. It really is. It's a fantastic arrow. However, if you do something wrong with these, like hit them on the door jamb on your way through and like bend your quiver back, you could bend them. If you take any of the big carbons, you can pretty much prop up a mobile home with them and they'll be fine. So it's a trade-off. I preferred the carbons for the longest time, but for the last couple years shooting the aluminums, I've just come to the conclusion that they're just more forgiving. And so to answer the other question about spine, well, they're all too stiff. The 2712 with 250 grains, it's too stiff for me at 32 inches in draw length. So it's really kind of a moot point. It's just about tuning the bow to the arrow. I mean, I know everybody goes, oh, well, you got to tune this and you got to tune that. And well, there's a hell of a lot more you can do with the bow than you can the arrow. For instance, here's another messy swamp water story. Before Jesse was going over to win one of his several feet of field championships, I was actually back in PA for the IBO Worlds. Went over to Jesse's and he was tinkering around, and he had a 400 spine arrow tuned out of his bow for pretty much everything. Well, he wanted to go to a lighter arrow to gain more speed for that. So without moving his rest at all, we were able to tune all the way up to a 500 spine arrow just by yoke tuning. I think we moved his rest up or down just a little bit. So you can tune your bow. I can't tune a 500 spine to shoot at 32 inches. But if you're relatively close on your spine, you can get it to tune and shoot however you want. One of the things to keep in mind, and this is why some companies run their spines a lot heavier than what they might technically need to be, is on purpose. And that is, a stiffer arrow is going to hide more issues with the tuned bows. For instance, if there's any left and right anomalies, a stiffer arrow is going to help hide those. It's just like vanes, the big giant, HP style vanes. Those things are loud as all get out, but why did everybody start going to them for hunting? Because arrow shops knew that they helped with bad arrow flight. So they didn't have to tune the bow as much. That's just a fact. And so when it comes to, the spine of these big arrows, whatever, I don't care. I can remember back in the day, Cabe Johnson from Spot Hog built like some 700 grain points to go in his big fat arrows just to see if the whole spine thing was accurate. I mean, it's accurate to a point, but it's only accurate to the point of which you end up tuning those arrows. Excuse me. So if you go from a 300 to a 340 spine arrow, is it going to change your world? No, it's not. However, I think the gold tip triple X's are spined at a 150? You're never going to break the spine down on a gold tip triple X. Ever, never, it's never going to happen. Does that mean that a 27 diameter carbon arrow that's a 400 spine is going to shoot better? I guess it depends on what you're using it for, how long you cut it, what kind of vanes you put on it, and the most important thing is how good are you at tuning? If you are a tuning geek and you can tune anything, then it's probably not going to matter. So it's just going to be really a matter of what you have access to. But for me, at this stage, I'm going to be running aluminums because they're just more forgiving. What other questions you got?
What thickness blade do you run with the 250 grain points?
I'm starting right now with a 10, because that was on the rest when I pulled it out of my box. So not really too worried about that. I'm going to start off with a 10,000 standard. And if I need to go to a 12, then I will. But generally speaking, the 10 works for just about everything that I'm doing. I have had to go to a 12 for indoors before, and the scores will dictate that, and how it tunes up will dictate that as well. What else you got, babe?
Can you say what your process is for selecting arrows and what you do?
Well, for me, I don't really have choices. It's like going and picking out shirts. I'm a triple extra large. This is a triple extra large. They don't have any bigger, and I can't wear any smaller. So for me, when it comes to picking arrows, I don't really have a whole lot of choices. When we're talking about, I have some options when it comes to outdoor arrows. I've never shot 23 diameter arrows. I don't shoot the World Archery indoor stuff, USA Archery indoor stuff. I don't care about it. So never shot a 23 diameter arrow in my life. But when it comes to indoors, I'm shooting 27s, 27 diameter arrows. So when I was at Gold Tip, it was a triple X. When I was at, now that I'm shooting Eastons, it's a 27-12. Okay, it just is what it is. Now, going outdoors is kind of a little different scenario because, as most people know, a stiffer arrow will shoot just as good shorter distances, but the farther distance you go, if you're shooting an arrow that's too stiff for you, your groups are going to start to open up a little bit. Conversely, a super weak arrow will not shoot technically as tight as it potentially could at closer distances, but the farther you go, the weaker arrow is going to start to shoot tighter than the stiffer arrow. But at 32 inches in draw length, I was shooting I tried the stiffest Pro Tours. They worked pretty good. I got to tell you though, when I went to the 325 when I went to the 325 X10s and cut, I don't know, what are we cutting off the back of those, Steve-O? 4 inches or so? Something like that. Those worked better for me because basically what you created was approximately that spine of a Pro Tour. So it was a little stiffer Pro Tour when you took a regular X10 325 and cut it all off the back. It is what it is. However, once again, don't be too jacked up on spine. And I hate to keep referencing Jesse Broadwater, but if you remember a couple years ago at Reading, Jesse was shooting a set of my super stiff Pro Tours. At the Dakota Classic, Jesse was shooting a set of the super stiff, I think at the time it was 350 X10s with 5 inches cut off the back. And Jesse's only a 28.5 inch draw length. But he's Jesse Broadwater, so you got to kind of weigh both of those scenarios. The freak show versus us mere mortals. So Jesse pretty much took my arrows, cut them down, and whooped my ass with them. Yeah, I've gotten used to it. So spine is relative, but don't get too hung up on spine when there's things you can do with your bow to make them absolutely pound. You will find some variables once you get to the outer limits of that, but for the most part, I did have better luck when I went to the stiffer 325 X10.
Can you quickly go over what all you measure for your journal?
Yes.
That is from Alan Harker.
Alan, what's up, my man? So, when, let's do this right quick. Bear with me. See if I can't not lose 5,000 pieces and parts when I go to do this. I didn't even need the hammer. Yeah. All right. So when I start to journal any bow, whether it's a bow that someone sends to me to diagnose, or whether it's a bow someone sends to me to tune, or if they come here, or if it's my own, basically the first thing that I always do is I just break the bow down to its bare bones. And like I said, if you guys want me to do a complete breakdown of the Podium X3 that I'm going to be getting, the Podium 40 with the X3 cams, the PX3, sounds like a video game. If you guys want me to do a complete breakdown of that, I will. Just let me know. But once I do that, the very first thing that I'll do is I'll start my book with axle to axle, and then I'll go the measurement that I really care about, which is true length. And the reason, and I actually had a question today, when do I suggest someone goes from the 37 to the 40 inch as far as their draw length? And I said, in my opinion, about 29, but it really depends on the size of your cams. So these cams are not the small cams. And so they're going to have, well, let's measure. Since we're here and we're all talking, hanging out, let's look at how much. We have about 1 5/8 inches plus. So 1 5/8 inches above the axle. So let's just say it's 1.5 inches. So a 40-inch bow is actually 43 inches because that's what determines the string angle, and that's what I care about. So I'll write down axle to axle just because it's easy to measure. I'll measure true length. I'll measure brace height. Obviously, brace height. I will write down the limb split. I'll write down the limb split out of the pocket and the limb split up at the cam, top and bottom. And that is, once again, I cannot stress how important that particular aspect is. The other thing that I'll write down is where I have my cable rod adjusted, because I'm shooting the Hoyts. It's adjustable, so I write that down. I will write down the basics of what my, like right now I set up this bow at a 13/16 center shot. I'll write that down. One of the other things I will write down is I will write down how far it is from the lobe of the cam right here to my loop. I'll measure this distance right here. And the reason that I measure that distance right there is I will actually do plane, and I haven't had a chance to do it with this geometry, but I will move this entire set up and down, not for tuning, for holding. I'll not even move my rest. I'll just stand there at 50, 60 yards, and the arrows will go up and the arrows will go down. I don't really care, but I'll move this up and down just to see if one holds better, if I need a different plate, or if I find a magic spot. So I'll write down that. Once I get it set for 20 for indoors, I'll write down my peep height at brace height. And then even more importantly, the peep height measurement that I care about is peep to arrow at full draw. So I'll put it in my draw board, I'll draw it back, and I will actually measure from the peep to the arrow at full draw, because that's the measurement that counts. So if you have a bow that's 2 inches shorter in draw length, as long as you set your peep at full draw, it's going to be way higher. A bow that's shorter is going to have a higher peep height at brace, whatever. But when you come back to full draw, the peep to arrow distance is going to be the same. I will measure from the throat of my grip to my string, and then I'll measure from the throat of my grip to the back of my D loop. One of the other things that I'll measure is I'll measure at full draw from the peep to my scope. And that's a super important measurement for lots of reasons that I can go into, but I'll measure from the scope to the peep. I don't usually move my bar a whole lot, simply because once I get that where I want it and I get my peep sight set, I actually had a couple questions about this today. Let me hit on this. I'm blind. Let's just get that out there. I'm blind. I don't want to use a clarifier. So for me, what I've done is I have a 4-power lens, and I've moved it in and out, and I've changed my peep height until I have a happy medium. My dot is a blur, target's a blur, but it's the best blurs I can get. I don't want to run a clarifier, and I'm too chicken to put in contacts. Just is what it is. And so I will write down that total distance. I will write down my starting knocking point, and then as I do any adjustments, I will write that down as well.
Do you measure from the scope lens or scope pin if you run both?
I go from the lens. Josh, I always go to the lens. I shoot a center drilled or I shoot a dot on my lens, so I always go to the lens, because that's going to be where visually you're going to start to get some anomalies if you start messing around with that. So at my draw length and my sight distance, a 4-power lens, it might be a 4.5 power. I have no idea, compared to a guy like Chuck Cooley, who doesn't have my arms. Not a retard, Chuck, just the pterodactyl, Tyrannosaurus. The exact same system on Chuck's bow. He's probably 4 or 5 inches shorter in sight length. So the closer the magnified lens is to the target, the more powerful it's going to act. So that's why I do that. One of the other things that I journal about is for every bow build is what spacers are what and where the cams are spaced. I write down which spacers, like on this bow, I'm going to say silver spacer on the outside, black spacer on the inside, and then I'm going to write, and then I'll put my arrow on here and I'll write down approximately, just so I understand it, how much cameline is in this particular bow. I will then do the exact same thing for the top. Like on this one here, I'll say big red spacer on the inside, white spacer on the outside, and then I will make notations. Now, I did shoot through paper and I have about a shaft straight left tear. So I'm actually going to put a couple twists in this left yoke or take a couple out of the right before I actually start getting this bow rolling. Once I do that, I will write down my timing. Like the timing on this one right now is fairly close, but until I start shooting it and until I start actually tuning it in, you know, as you go back through my journal, once you get to the 2-cam stuff, the PSEs and the Hoyts, you'll see that there'll be stuff like 16th ahead on top or dead even, or even on some of the old spirals, I was almost 1/8 of an inch ahead on top. So after I do that, I will write down draw weight, what the total draw weight is. I will write down holding weight. And generally speaking, I don't have to do this anymore, but I believe that there's 3 weights that matter: draw weight, holding weight, and execution weight. And now obviously draw weight is how many pounds the whole bow is. Holding weight is where it is in the valley. Now, if you're a Chance Bow Buff, he kind of floats in the middle of that valley there. So his execution weight is probably not much over his holding weight. Whereas if you talk to some of the other guys that are more aggressive, they may have a 60-pound draw weight, 20-pound holding weight, but their execution weight, that could be 28 pounds if they're pulling the limbs off the bow, like a Roger Willett. I guarantee you his execution weight's probably double his holding weight. What's up? Oh, so I will write down the draw weight and the holding weight, just so I can have those figures. And obviously there's some things we've done in the past with thicker cables, thicker servings to kind of manipulate that holding weight, but that's one of the things that I will write down as well. Now that I've pulled my head out, I will write down on this bow what my total mass weight of the bow is, and then I'll write down my stabilizer rig. Anytime that I make an adjustment, whether it's add an ounce, take an ounce off, move the back bar up, move the back bar down, I'll write it down. And I'll write that down so that I always know, you know, what's working and what's not. Other than that, you know, I just basically write down as much information on the bow as I can, because when you come back after the fact, you're never going to remember. I don't journal quite as much information on a hunting bow as I do a target bow, because I'm shooting a target bow tens of thousands of times a year, whereas I'm shooting the hunting bow generally maybe 1,000. So that is just another factor there that I always look into. There was one other thing I was gonna talk about. What's up, babe? Any questions?
There is a Tracy Kreider, why not a clarifier?
I actually ran a clarifier, Tracy, many years ago, back when I was shooting with Maurice Audet back in the day. And up in Oregon, it rains a lot. Like last year in archery, it pretty much rained at every outdoor tournament we went to, and it screwed me a few times. I got a dot of water in my lens, and I was pretty much screwed. And so I just decided back then that I'm not going to mess with clarifiers. I'm just going to kind of deal with the blurry image. One of the other issues that I have with the clarifiers at this current state is you can take how many clarifiers you can take it with the lenses that don't have clarifiers, with the inserts. But if you take the inserts out of these and you take 5 of them and you hold them up and you roll them on a target like this, and a good bit of them, you're going to see that image move like this. So it's not true centered. So if I go from this drilled peep to a clarifier, I could get some images moving. And so that's not good. So I just build it with this. My fault, your fault, no one's fault. If I miss, it's because of me. It's not because of light refraction. Or now there are some good products on the market now, longer peep shades that actually, I got to say, Tim Gillingham is the one that started that whole trend with the tubing and all that. So props to Tim Gillingham for doing that. But that helps a bunch. But I don't shoot 3D. I don't need to see lines. I can barely see them through my loophole binoculars anyway because I'm blind. So I don't necessarily worry about that. I will be doing some testing on this bow, moving the bracket from the bottom to the top to kind of see where I find the holding characteristics to be the most favorable. I can tell you right now, this peep's probably a little bit high, which makes sense because I went with the blaze loop. So I didn't, in my mind, I just kind of went, it's pretty good, but I forgot about the blaze loop. So this peep's probably going to need to come down a little bit. You know, other than that, that's pretty much, you know, what the build's going to be about. I will go now into the range back here and I will bare shaft tune it. That's always, well, correction. I will change the strings and cables next because before I bare shaft tune it, I will change the strings and cables because different servings, different everything, those are virtually never the same. But I will shoot this bow, do some tuning with the stabilizers and stuff, and just kind of get some of the bugs worked out as far as make sure the draw length's perfect, make sure all that stuff's ready to go, and then it's just going to be a matter of starting to put some time behind it. So, you know, like I said, that's pretty much the long and short of it. If you guys have any more questions, fire them away. I'll be more than happy to ask, or you can PM me.
How do you measure execution weight?
For that, you need to have a release. I didn't bring it. I use the Carter. Carter makes the Revolution or Evolution, I forget what the name they call it. I got one of the original ones. It's nice and big. It fits these mitts proper. But basically, it's a release I use to train and in practice a lot. Where basically you hook up and you draw, and then as you pull, there is no trigger. There's just a safety on it. But once you get to that certain pressure, doink, it breaks. John Dudley has a new Carter release called the Silverback, which is a 2-finger release like that, which is the exact body of the knock to it, but it's actually one of the back tension, got to pull through it. So once you have one of those completely dialed to where it breaks when you think it's going to break, you know, as far as when you're loading, when it gets to about where you want to feel, then you just simply take a piece of D-loop material, hook it up to a scale, and do it about 5-10 times, and you'll get a basic reading for about what your execution weight is. Mine historically has been about 4 to 5 pounds above my holding weight, unless I get sloppy.
Stephen Belzner wants to know, what aperture do you use outdoors versus indoors?
Same. Well, okay, I can't say exact same. If the lighting at the indoor venue is proper, it'll be the same. But a lot of times, like in here with this kind of lighting, your peep is huge. It's just huge. And so when I go outside, I like to have, and look, there are some companies out there making rings for your scopes that have like 3 or 4 or 5. If that's the route you want to go, so be it. But generally speaking, when I get outside, I'll set my peep size to where when I draw in the sun and my peep size goes whoosh, because if you're in the bright sun, your peep sight gets really, really small. I will set that to where I can barely see my white ring of my scope. So outdoors in the sun, I will set my peep to where in the sun, it barely sees this white ring. Then I will go to the shade or in the dark underneath the canopy, and then I can barely see around it. And for me, that allows me to kind of mitigate both the light and the dark side. If you don't think that that's something that you can consistently do, then think about getting one of the big shields on here that has like 5 rings on it. That way you always have a ring to center on. I've never really thought I needed it. that's just what it is. But I do bring all of my inserts with me. So like if I go to, for instance, Vegas, Vegas is not bad in the arena. However, if you shot the wrong target in Vegas, like a dumbass, me, and you end up shooting down on the other side of the practice range at the end of the whole arena by the garbage cans, where the lighting is about as good as an outhouse, then you're going to have to go to a smaller peep, which I did, because I got down there and just in the first two practice ends, I could see it was huge. So I put in a smaller peep, got through it, and then had to go back to my other one. But mitigating that size is always an important factor, which is why when it comes to torque tuning, we're probably starting to get a little bit long on this live feed, but when it comes to torque tuning, that's why I don't suggest moving your sight forward and back to accommodate the best torque tune. Because as you move that sight forward and back, you are moving the size of the housing and the power of the lens. Now, can you move it 1 or 2 dots and it not matter? Probably. But if you start moving it way in and way out, you're going to need to change peep sizes, your sight tape's going to change, the power of your lens might be different now. And so I've chosen to stick with this peep size and about this sight length for many, many years now, and it just doesn't cause me any problems. And so when I go to torque tune, I use my rest. I use my rest only. I will admit, I've not shot an arrow at a dot or a target out of this yet, so I've not torque tuned it. I use the standard length mount, and that's what it took on the podium, and that's what it took on the Vantage Elite Plus for me. Now, I will torque tune this bow, and I might need to go to the longer bar. I don't know, but I'm going to start off here with the point of my rest about an inch and a half to 1.75 inches from the back from the throat of the grip. And that for me historically is where my torque tune has been with Hoyt geometries, not on the Ultra Elite and not on the Pro Comp, but on the podiums, on the Vantage Elite Pluses, this sight bar length here, almost back to here, has worked for me for my torque tune because of how I set my sight length and to my peep. Now, if I was to slide this sight, for instance, if I was to go like this, if I was to go like that, I would need to get the longer bar freak show because now I would need my rest to be behind the tech bar in order for it to torque tune. And that's just not something that I ever want to mess with. I can move my rest forward and back all I want, and it doesn't affect anything else other than the torque tune. But if you start messing with peeps and sights in and out, then you're messing with a bunch of stuff. And that's something that's very, very important to remember is a lot of people, tiller, and I haven't even messed with tiller on this yet, so I'll have to get back to you all on that. But a lot of people will be like, oh, just take a turn out of your top limb. Well, okay, but what does that do? Oh, well, some people says that it micro tunes your knock height. Correct. Oh, it changes your draw length a little bit. Yeah, correct. It changes the angle of the grip in your hand. Correct again. So when you're thinking about doing something with tiller, you need to keep in mind what exactly you're trying to accomplish. Because if you take a turn out of your top limb and you're like, oh, that's so much better, it's grouping so much better, it feels so much better. Well, okay, which one of the variables of taking a turn out of your top limb made that happen? Could you have accomplished the same thing by putting 3 twists in your string? Who knows? Actually, if you took a turn out, it would have lengthened your draw length just a little bit, so you would have taken turns out. But you get the point, is when you start messing with tiller, it messes with so many other things that it's just kind of hard to keep track. So I'm a big fan of, if I'm having a problem with something, I dissect it and I go one thing at a time. If you move a tiller bolt, you are affecting all kinds of stuff at the same time. Brace height, axle to axle, knocking point, which is why a lot of people in hot weather don't necessarily know how to mitigate the variations in bows due to extreme heat. Some people, Dave Cousins, Jesse Broadwater, some of those guys, they're the best I've ever seen at shooting in extreme weather. They get it. They're super smart and they know how to track it. But one of the things that I'll point out to you real quick is when it gets super hot, strings and cables expand, not stretch, they expand. Limbs get weak, everything happens. But does the change in poundage and the minute change in draw length really affect impact point that much? It does a little, but I'm going to show you what actually affects it even more, and that's the change in knock height. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get focused right on that loop. So I'm going to pull down on my bus cable. You want it down more so you don't have to hold that up?
Fine, back up right there, perfect.
Okay, so I'm actually going to pull down on my bus cable, which is going to simulate the cable getting shorter, which is not what it does when it gets hot. It actually gets longer. But watch the loop. See what that loop's doing? It's going down. And all I'm doing is going like this. But if you look, when I do that, the loop goes down. So the vast majority of the pressure in this system is on the bus cable, not on the control. And I know a lot of people are going, whoa, but the control is gonna expand too. Yeah, but about 80% of the load is on the bus cable, not the control cable. So, I mean, at full draw, you can stick your finger in the string and turn your finger and change a peep because there's only like 15 to 18 pounds of pressure on the string at full draw. So if simulating bus cable contraction makes the knocking point go down, what does it do when it gets hot and expands? The knocking point goes up. And what do we all have to do when it gets super hot outside? We have to start adding yardage. Some systems have to add more yardage than others. For instance, when I shot the Apex 8 from Matthews, I had to add double what most everybody else did because the one cams were more susceptible to that. That incremental change affected the knocking point on the one cams more than it did anything else. Obviously, that's not an issue anymore. But when the limbs heat up and the strings and cables expand, that's what happens. Is your knocking point, because of the bus cable taking the exorbitant amount of the load, your knocking point's actually moving up a little bit. So that's why you start to hit low. It all contributes, but a big majority of why we have to start adding yardage when it's hot is our knocking point is actually moving. And that's just the nature of the beast. And then what happens? You get done with the day, you go back to the house or you go back to the hotel and you chill out and things cool down. And you're like, well, I'm going to go back over to the range and I'm going to shoot. I need to get my marks figured out. You go back over to the range and now guess what? Now you're hitting high. Why? Because the limbs cooled down, the bus cable and the strings all went back to where they normally were, and now you're back to your normal spot. That's just the way it works. And so that's something that people like Dave Cousins and Jesse Broadwater and those champion archers, they know that. I know that. They're just way better shots than me. So that is, that's one of the things to keep in mind when we start talking about inclement weather, is knowing what your system is doing when it gets hot, when it gets cold. That's why in the mornings, I'll go out in the mornings, out here on the left coast, I'll go out in the mornings and, Paige Gore and all of these left coast shooters, they can attest. You go out there in the morning and you're hitting a little hot. It's cool in the morning, everybody's got jackets on, it's a little bit cold, and most of the time everyone's gonna hit just maybe top of the X. Well, that's because everything's cold. Well, once you start shooting and the weather starts to warm up, that starts to come back down. And then about lunchtime when it starts to get super hot, then we start to hit low and we have to add yardage. So that's pretty much the reason for that. And so, it's just little things like that add up. And as long as you know these things as you're tracking throughout the tournament, you're going to be able to keep on track with them. And that's why people like Dave Cousins and Jesse Broadwater and those types of archers, that's why you don't see them having the peaks and valleys like us mere mortals do. You know, some of us come off the course and we're like, I couldn't hit my butt with both hands today. I was hitting high this morning and then low this afternoon, and I'm adding 1.5 yards. And well, those people understand why and what's happening, and they can stay on top of it. And that's what allows them to keep hitting the middle when other people are trying to figure out what the hell's happening. And so that's pretty much it, folks. What do we got?
Eric Welsh, can you take a minute to speak about the importance of the man bun?
I can. The man bun is the greatest PM ever created in the history of mankind. And if you don't know what PM is, you might want to go Google that. Second observation about the man bun. The only people that generally complain about the man bun are men. So
I think the man bun.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm not wearing the man bun for you, bro. So I'm glad you might not like it. So the benefits of the man bun are secular, and they have nothing to do with your section. You are the wrong demographic. And we'll just leave it at that. Oh, and by the way, I can't do this one by myself. Kathy has to do it for me. My man bun game is slipping. So Kathy had to help a brother out today and take care of this one. So if there's no more questions, that'll pretty much wrap up this live feed. As always, want to thank everybody for coming. Love you guys. Obviously, everybody start practicing up. Get ready for indoors. If anybody has any questions, feel free to PM me, text me, email me. All right, probably don't email me. I'm a bit behind on my emails by about 1,200. But, you know, if you have any questions or would like to see anything else, by all means, hit me up. I will be doing, if you guys want, I'll do a live feed of a complete breakdown of the Hoyt X3, PX3, when it comes. And really looking forward to trying out that cam as well. Hope everybody got a little nugget of wisdom out of this. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that I forgot because I was just kind of spitballing this. And as I sit here and look, you know, there's just, you can't remember everything all the time, but as I keep remembering things that I do on these, I will continue to put out some material for you guys. One thing that I can say is if you don't have someone near you that has this information, find it. Search it out, find it, go to somebody that has this level of information. There's a lot of really good coaches out there. A lot, you know, if you want shot execution help, or if you want help with target panic, there's certain people for that. I'm not one of them. But when it comes to the actual tuning of the bow, stabilization, obviously stabilization that's my gig, but I've kind of relented on that, and I let some of the internet experts profess their wisdom at this point. But when it comes to the actual tuning of the bow itself, I'm pretty up to speed on that. So if you have any questions, hit me up. Anything else?
What is your next video going to be about?
Next video will probably be, if I had to speculate, it'll probably be broadhead tuning. I got to get that double XL rolling. Going hunting with Nick Fisher probably here in another week and a half or so, and then might be doing some TV show hunting before the end of the year. And so that'll probably be one. Bear shaft tuning, and probably then this bow. I'll probably, who out there would like to see a live feed on changing the strings and cables over and how to do them and maintain everything as you go along? Anyone? So I know there's a delay on here, but so I might do a video on changing the strings over to the first string ones. By the way, everybody, Scott already sent the Prevail X3 strings, so I'm ready to roll as soon as that bad boy arrives. But
Lots of likes on your question, and people saying they would like to see that.
okay, so the next video will either be tuning broadheads with the double XL, represent hashtag big boy approved, or it will be changing over the strings on this bow, which is probably going to need to happen sooner rather than later. One thing is my wife is leaving for a week. And so I'm going to have all kinds of time to put out all kinds of material so I don't go crazy when she's gone. So as all of you know, Kathy is my PIC, my partner in crime, and so I don't really do anything without her. So next week she's going to be gone all week, so I'm going to have nothing but time to spread hate and discontent, which we all know I love to do. So basically, stay tuned if there's any videos or live feeds that you guys would like to see. The AAE testing facility is at our disposal, so we can do it. So
Evan Williams says, what up?
what up, E-Dog? So Evan, thanks for coming in, my man. So let's say, so Evan, when is that Prevail with the X3 cams going to be here? Everybody wants to know. Just saying, dog. I'm not trying to put you on blast or anything, but just throwing that out there. I'll wait.
He says, without me here, you're going to get into trouble.
What, are you going to tattle on me? You're not going to tattle on me, bro. I know it. I know it. But anyway, that's pretty much it, everybody. If no one else has any questions, we'll keep running these things through. Obviously, the future live feeds aren't... Sweet. Thanks, Evan. I appreciate you, homie. Obviously, moving forward, the live feeds are not going to be as long as the XXL feed or as long as this particular video here, but we did cover some good material today. Hopefully, Jordan, that answered your questions on my hunting arrows. If anybody has questions on how to manipulate the cam spacers and basically how that whole thing works, let me know. I can do another video on that, or whatever we need to do. One thing that I did want to mention on the cam spacing part, which I forgot, is when I have to induce too much cam lean on the top, just for what makes me comfortable. But basically, whenever I have to put too much cam lean in the top to accomplish the tune I'm looking for, that is when I will straighten out the cam and I will actually shift the cam whichever way I need it to go so that the cam's not got too much cam lean in it. I haven't had to do that for a long, long time, but that is one of the things that I did forget to say. So, all right, everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Maintain those gains, whatever those gains are, whether it's being a better person, archery, muscles, doesn't really matter what it is. Chase your gains every day. And thanks for your support, everybody. Love you guys. Love, peace, and chicken grease.